Pray with me. O Lord, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, and to be loved as to love. Amen. Well, good morning to you all, and happy St. Francis Day. Never work with animals or children is the often misunderstood quote attributed to the comedian W.C. Fields, misunderstood because it wasn't said to warn against the difficulties of working with animals and children, but to warn that animals and children always steal the show. This has certainly been my experience in the hospital where I am a staff chaplain. If I am with a patient and a canine companion volunteer comes into the room with their adorable dog, I mean, it is game over for me. I cannot compete, and I would never try. Be the person your dog thinks you are. That is a quote that is often attributed to J.W. Stevens from his 2012 book, Chess with Carrizo. It's been popularized on t-shirts and even songs such as, Lord, help me be the person my dog thinks I am. Now, admittedly, I did not know this song before last week. But in our collect for today, we read, Lord, give us those good things for which we are not worthy to ask. How about unfailing love in the face of what we may have done or left undone? Or the unconditional love that is the love our animals give to us. This love is about as pure as it gets. But Jesus has some thoughts about preparing our hearts and minds to comprehend the kingdom that is waiting. Increase our faith, plead the disciples. Looking back through the earlier chapters of Luke, we are made all too aware of the heavy requirements for discipleship. Jesus chastises followers that falter while emphasizing how important it is to also offer radical forgiveness. That's a confusing roadmap. In chapter 14, Luke challenges his disciples to deny the family, pick up the cross, and to give up all possessions. It is no wonder the apostles say, Lord, increase our faith. A professor at Church Divinity School, Francisco Garcia, writes, faith does not increase like magic. It is felt, and it's known through lived experience, and this can only come through practice in those challenging moments when faith is put to the test. Jesus' outrageous and disproportionate example of how only a seemingly small amount of the right kind of faith is needed to do incredible things. Jesus is talking quality, not quantity. Some have interpreted this passage as an admonishment to apostles who don't even have the faith of a mustard seed. Others have inferred that Jesus is simply reminding them that the faith they already have is enough to move the mulberry tree to the sea. I fall into this camp because I think that there is enough potential in the mustard seed to unfurl a world of connectivity. It's going to hold up in the face of adversity and doubt if we give it air and water and nourishment. James Fowler was a theologian and professor of theology and human development at Emory. And he's best known for his book called The Stages of Faith. I'm sure some of you know it, published in 1981, in which he sought to develop an idea of a developmental process for human faith, much like Piaget did for cognitive development. He looks at 6 stages of spiritual growth, from infancy through childhood, adolescence, young adult, and older adulthood, and finally old age. His theory is that as we mature through childhood, we move from a more literal understanding of God as taught by our parents and our faith community to our teen years, rejecting one way of thinking to adopt the belief systems of our peers, sometimes not realizing that those are also, in fact, pretty closed systems. Then young adults now living into a new maturity with job pressures and families of their own that will also examine assumed beliefs and begin to doubt maybe what they have thought to be true about God or religion. And while some might think that this is a kind of regression, Fowler argues that it's an essential part to move forward towards a stage of faith that he calls conjunctive faith, where one realizes the limits of logic and begins to accept that life is full of paradox and mystery. I think this is where I stand. It is a stage that embraces the difficult questions that surface about the reality of things and does not shy away from doubt as an essential catalyst to move our faith forward. I've come to believe that doubt is the often misunderstood ingredient in the alchemy of mature faith, a faith that stands up to the reality of inevitable heartbreak. And I will confess that the engine behind my relationship with God and with Jesus has been fueled to some degree by doubt. From my days in boarding school being a teaching assistant for an intro class to religion, to my years in college, where a minor in religion introduced me to texts from a myriad of religious perspectives. My driving question was always, what is this about? What is the secret to faith? What is the true belief? And for that matter, who is Jesus? Lord, increase my faith. My journey to this pulpit was formed as a little girl watching my parents perform for their friends the music of the American Songbook of Johnny Mercer, Jelly Roll Morton, and Irving Berlin. This was my parents' theology. And it was formed in college by German theologians who parsed out Heidegger and Hegel, whose proofs of God's existence worked on my need to be assured of God's reality, which worked for a time. It was formed by the death of my mother and father and by the joy of raising 4 children in a complicated world. And it has for sure been formed by the fabric of humanity at a cancer hospital for whom the only thing that ever matters at the end is how much you have loved and how much you have received love. There is, in Fowler's taxonomy, a final stage. He calls it universalizing faith. He writes that few people ever reach this stage. He describes it as a stage where one lives their life in the full service of the other without any real doubt or any worry. Well, I'm not there. Not yet, because I worry. Luke makes the point in the second part of the reading that we should not expect that God will thank us for our obedience. On the contrary, our faith should be as natural and as debt-free as breathing itself. It should, in the end, look a lot simpler than it does for me when I read the morning paper or watch the evening news or see a young one suffer. And yet, I also know that this faith this desire to be in relationship to God is the choice to see what comes into our vision when we are connected into the source of creative possibility. And it is available all of the time. How can we use this to transform our world? We are, in fact, surrounded by the kind of beauty and kindness that can take our breath away. Our faith, even as small as the mustard seed, is all we need to be reminded that transformative growth begins right here with us. Let us choose to notice the way our beloved creatures notice, with wonder, curiosity, and with trust. Amen.